Welcome everyone to Reroot. My name is Cynthia LeConte, and I am sitting here today with a so ever special guest, Bhaskar Goswami. He is founder of Dana. Wait, I don't even know how to introduce you. Welcome everyone to Reroot. My name is Cynthia LeConte. I am sitting here with Bhaskar Goswami, teacher, speaker, and yogipreneur. Bhaskar is a yoga meditation teacher and an embodiment catalyst. He's the founder of Bodhi and Dana. He's dedicated to helping leaders from all levels to access the wisdom of their bodies to regain a level of balance in their lives. Welcome, Bhaskar.
Delighted to be here with you, dear Cynthia.
How are you?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. There are many layers to it. I feel good, health-wise, family relationship, career-wise as well. Yet there is this undercurrent of uncertainty that's sort of has enveloped the globe, and undercurrent of suffering as well that comes with it. So it's a fascinating sort of duality that this body is living with, where at one level individually everything is fine, give or take, collectively though there seems to be a massive tsunami that is occurring for every human being.
Absolutely.
Intimately and collectively. Yeah.
Okay, this is actually all good material, so I'm gonna wait till Greg goes in and
Okay.
out.
You want a cameo? In every podcast, you just have a little moment of Greg,
Yeah.
Your moment of Greg. Spot the Greg moment.
Oh, too funny. No, my gosh. I think we can all agree on that social global tsunami that's happening right now. And I think this is a little bit at the source of me creating this Reroot podcast / videos, is to help people kind of gain perspective and maintain a positive space or get into a positive space throughout these, I'll call them like challenging times, right? And it's also really humbling to find out that although there's so many of us that have been doing really heart-centered work, like work that are all about mind, body, and soul, that we ourselves also go through the struggles of going through these motions, watching the world go through these motions and having to deal with our own inner world as well, and almost first and foremost, right?
Yeah, this is a very good observation. We human beings, we seek clarity. That's something that's very important for us. Even if you're a slave or an emperor, we want to have some clarity as to, how the life will unfold, tragic or not. The clarity really helps us sort of navigate through it. But without the clarity, we tend to feel very overwhelmed. And in that state, all that stuff inside us just comes up, whatever that is, whatever our weak spot is, be it depression, anxiety, fear, anger. And so there's this thing that is coming up, I find, in the collective. The best and the worst of us is kind of rising up because we are suddenly find ourselves in a global uncertainty. I don't think there's a single person that can actually say, I know exactly what's going on and this is what's going to happen next. We might have some ideas, but really there's so many permutations, combinations. It's a collective uncertainty that we're sitting with.
Yeah, and it seems like we're all on a quest for that certainty or that truth. Like that's why we keep looking at like we're sourcing ourselves. We're looking at different resources, different sources of media, and I mean, I guess to a certain degree, that's why people watch the news. Like they're looking for clarity, and yet we're not. Despite that, we're not getting any, especially these days.
We're not lacking information. That's for sure.
Well, that's the other
it's
thing
just from
too.
all over the place,
Yeah, we're sent on like almost this like roller coaster of information and realities.
Yeah. Yeah, and even the same source tends to contradict itself, and no necessarily bad intentions. It's just, again, even the source does not know really what's going to happen the next day. And yeah, so we're doing our best to make up these new social norms, and doing our best to respect our truth and respect everybody else's wishes as well. And in a way, it really does call for the best in us, to really care for each other's opinions, although they might be divergent from our own, and just honor that. Yeah. So it's because there's so many polarizing ideas right now. It's so tempting to just fall into camps, and fall into this narrative of convincing, or arguing, because there's so many polarizing ideas out there. Fundamentally, because the ideas that we had some clarity on, the ones that we followed, have lost the foundation on which they were standing, which is trust. There's been an erosion, a tremendous erosion of trust, I find, in conventional sources of clarity. Like the media, like politics, government, whatever it might be. I can go on like this, pharmaceuticals and so on. We just don't know who to trust anymore. So along comes YouTube.
Oh my
And voila.
God.
And other sources like that.
Yeah, and would you not say, like, I see there's so much beauty in that, in a sense, or I don't know if it's beauty, but it's definitely, it's a wake up. It's a wake up, because where we thought we could put our trust, all of a sudden we're opening our eyes, and that's also a form of information that is coming to us, is the whole idea that, wow, like, I've been putting my full trust into these sources, is these resources, these organizations, these systems, when in fact right now I'm getting that maybe I need to take a step back from that and really look at the agendas behind these sources. Or there's
Mhm.
a truth that I was looking at, that there was a truth that I was looking for out there, that all of a sudden is being proven to be untrustworthy, and therefore it's like, where do I find my truth? So now it's almost like there's a new quest for truth out there.
Mm-hmm.
you know
So, something to play with. What if my source of clarity and certainty uh, does not rest outside? It never did, really. you know, but we tend to think that we control our environment and we have some say over it. But I think maybe we need to look for another anchor for certainty, and it might be an inside job. It might
it
be
just might be, yeah.
just might be.
It
Yeah,
just might be.
I'm not sure what's happening out there, but in here, I should know something. I should have
Yeah.
some clarity about how I'm navigating through this. And see who I am in all of this. And I sincerely hope and trust in many cases that this is happening. It's a chance that people are really getting to see themselves. Most of us, some of us, of course, even more busy, and essential services and so on. Um, and some of us have a dramatic change to our lifestyles, and like myself, and I'm really finding out what it means to be a father. I have three children, as you know, and I thought I knew what a father was, between in the morning, in the evening, and weekends. But when you have them 24/7 for like 5 months plus nonstop, you get to really see what a father is. It's quite a thing, and humbling, and beautiful, and very self-reflecting. It really brings out the stuff that is in me that's easy to miss because of all the running,
Mm.
um, and distractions and so on. So the quietening down, the slowing down is bringing stuff up for people, certainly for myself. And yeah, that might be a blessing in all of this.
I want to go back to you talking about your, like, yes, your process through this as an individual and also as a father, because I know that obviously there's a lot of parents out there that have most likely been going through similar things. And you're quite known across the, like, West Island community, if not way further. We mention your name and people are like, oh yeah, I know Bhaskar.
I'm all
But like you're seen as like the true yogi and a great father and a great teacher and a very humble person with a sense of humor. And it's like a lot of people in your position are seen as having your shit together, really, when in essence the reality of it is the reality of it is that we don't always have our shit together. And so I'm just curious to find out what your process was, when you're saying, I really found out what it is to be a father. And I've been seeing your posts go by on Facebook, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Bhaskar is having so much fun with his family. You guys had these like thematic nights where you'd all get disguised and take pictures and post them on social media, and you had these dance things going on with the family, and you taught, I know this is not recent, but you also taught, I think, one of your kids to do a headstand, which is, I think, is awesome that you can do a headstand. I think it's like just as if not more awesome that your kid can do a headstand, and it's amazing. And so
Mm,
you have all these really awesome ways to like bring fun and lightness to a situation, and to
mm,
communicate that and share that with the world. And yet behind closed doors, you've been going through your own challenges there too.
sure.
So I'd love to hear a bit more about that process for you. Like, what did you go through and how did you work through it?
Mm. I wanted to kind of start by expressing that we're all sort of judgment projecting machines. So all these things, Bhaskar is this, Bhaskar is that, these are sort of projections. And once I see that, and I take it lightly. So I appreciate the kind words, and I know that and I have very kind words about you too. And this is what we do as human beings. And I do genuinely love hanging out with these little kiddos. They're so fun and so creative. It brings out the best in me. And so all that has been a blessing to just hang out with these amazing beings. What comes up, there's I think there's might be a misunderstanding that being a yoga practitioner / teacher means your life is a summer song and you never have any unpleasant visitors in the body. Very far from the truth, actually. Not only do you have unpleasant visitors, they're actually much more visible and they're loud. So a lot of it is just as you already know, just unresolved, unprocessed uh, childhood trauma typically that comes up. And for me, you sometimes, I have a 14-year-old son who went from playing soccer 3 hours a day to just becoming like the Yeti. You hardly know he exists. He just shows up for mealtime, and but now he started playing soccer again. But so just to say that, it brings up for me, frustration, anger, things like that, parts of me that I don't really enjoy very much, unwelcome visitors in this body, and childhood habit patterns that, I'm not blaming my parents in any way. They did the best they could do, and they also learned from their parents. But the reality is, I was raised with a fair amount of frustration, anger, guilt, shame, like many other people, and these things visit, and it's so tempting to parent a child using these tools because it works so well. You make a child feel scared or guilty or ashamed. They're gonna do what you want them to do. And I'm,
I love
good
the
at it.
truth.
I'm good at it. It's
I
terrible.
love that you're saying that, because it's just like, just putting it out there, put out the truth. Like,
Yeah.
there's no
It's
dancing around
easy. It's
that.
easy, and it's, for whatever reason, I've been gifted the ability to use speech to express ideas, and that's a gift and it's a curse as well, because I know I can hurt people with this. So put ideas in a logical way and make people feel trapped, and be a cunning lawyer in my own head and justify my reasons for doing that. Yet I know in my heart that I have caused harm, I've caused suffering. By that I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally. Tightness, shame, guilt, they're all tight emotions. And it's a heck of a thing, because it's very subtle. it's not the gross obvious throwing stuff and beating, and that's
Yeah.
that's first degree. It's the subtle stuff, that I still have to process in myself, and sit with and heal. Fundamentally, I find that what we're living is a story of you know wounded children in adult bodies. What I'm realizing more and more is that we're all adults that's carrying around a child that was wounded, and it typically happens at the age that my children are, between the age of 2 to say 12, 14. That's when ideas get hit in our psyche. I mean, I have a 3-year-old at home, and she's amazing. She has no fear, no shame, no guilt, just doing her thing, just the spark plug. And then you know, uh, typically unconsciously, we tend to pass on our unhealed wounds, and traumas, and that's how sort of things that are handed down get handed down. So it's a very humbling thing being a parent. And I know that the best case scenario is that I hurt them just a little bit. That's the best case scenario. It's very, very humbling, because they're each so unique, so brilliant in their own ways. It's incredible. And it takes a lot of skill actually to take it away from them. And we do a good job of it as parents, you know. So it's really about honoring that gift. Maybe it is their ability to express themselves, maybe it is by physical movement or whatever it might be. And yet be a parent. I use the analogy of like gardening. It's like a good gardener. It's not a question of there's a seed and you plant the seed. You create a good environment for that seed to grow, the right amount of water, sunlight, fresh air, space, etc. But the seed does what it does. If it's meant to be a mango tree, if it's meant to be a herb, it's meant to be a sunflower, it's not for me to turn into what I am. It's more about being the best version of what they are. So so the analogy here being that I could really jam up the process by projecting my fears, insecurities, unmet needs. And now I take the macro scope of this, as a global thing. We've created a society of wounded children passing on their wounds to other wounded children, and create a lot of systems and stories around this. And now we're seeing the consequence of that. In terms of unsustainable living. So yeah, it does point to us really doing that inner healing. Certainly for me, the more I am a light onto myself, the more I'm aware of myself, I know I'm a better human being. And this is not, the projections sincerely don't really matter for me anymore. It's it just comes and goes. A hero, zero, success, failure. These are all transient things. It's much more about this fascination with this inner dynamic of these reactive patterns that keep showing up, and just really becoming a friend to myself. And I think this is a big part of it. The more I befriend myself, the more I feel a sense of self-acceptance, self-worth, genuine self-confidence. So everything external becomes more of a source of information than a source of judgment.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that whatever it's about projection, mirroring, right? We mirror things and we project things. Whatever's going on inside, we will most likely project on the outside. So if you're walking around as the wounded child, well, that's going to show in your actions and your the way that you are with your children. And it comes back to, it's like saying hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, yes, it's cliche and it's right on point. It really is right on point.
Right. And there again is comes the concept of working on yourself first and making a difference out in the world with the people around you. In other words, if the source is here, if what is happening in the dynamic comes from your inside, well, then if you you do the inner work for yourself, well, that's going to show up in how you are around everybody around you. And obviously almost first and foremost your kids and your family.
Mm,
So again, bringing in the importance, the cruciality of working on ourselves first, doing the inner work first.
mm.
You know, because we're so, and I know, like, I'm not a parent. I mean, I have a cat. I'm a parent to a cat, but it's not
More demanding
comparable.
in many
Not
ways.
comparable. What I was going to say
Yeah.
earlier is that as a parent, we tend to forget about. I know a lot of parents forget about themselves
Mm,
because they're so
mm,
busy parenting and taking care of
mhm.
the kids and making sure the
Yeah.
kids are taken care of, and that the husband or the wife is taken care of, and that they're out doing the work so that they can provide and doing all of the outer work. and and it, how often do you see this? And I'll say, I think, and my observation is more in women, like more in mothers than in fathers, that they tend to completely forget about themselves, to the
Mm,
point where if and when it so happens that the kids move out, and or you know the husband is out of the picture, whatnot, they have to rediscover who they are completely. They have no idea of who they are and what they love, what their passions, what their true path is.
mm,
um so when you're at that point, it's like, well, it's just a commonality that we're not used to, or that as parents are not used to looking there.
mm. And I get it, it's not easy. Life is, there's a lot going on, most, if you're working, then you got to prepare all the food, clothing, and educate the kids, changing. There's so much there. It's superhero stuff. It's a lot. And at the same time, also true is that if you're navigating through that in an unexamined way, and we are sort of blindly projecting our frustrations, our insecurities, unmet needs, self-worthiness issues, is that the kind of parent you want to be? Do you want to, because what's inside you is going to come out. And if all that's inside you is this kind of negative stuff, then we're just kind of creating more of the trauma that's passing down. So uh, the reality is that the inner work practices are really to be a better parent, so you show up as a better version of yourself. And we're not talking about perfection here, we're just talking about progress, you know just a better version than yesterday, maybe, maybe you're 1% better. Well, that's a one very good percentage. So it's, to me, that's something that motivates me a great deal. So when I do my morning practice, and Caroline does her practice as well, and we do our things, walking in nature, or hanging out with friends, whatever it might be, that actually nourishes us and makes us a better human being. This is not something separate from being parents. It's actually in support of being better parents.
Mm,
You see, it's not an either or, it's really an also and.
so well said. Yes. And so, okay, so I'm hearing that you definitely have those practices going for yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's very simple, really. You'd think it's very complicated stuff. No classic headstands. It's just very simple stuff. But it's simple, yet it's complex. In that, it's very simple. Anybody can do it. My morning practice is very, very simple. I know exactly where my body tends to stiffen up, so I move in those particular ways. I do my mindfulness practice, and then I do some more invigorating sort of movements to get the blood flowing, and to feel alive, and then a cold shower afterwards. So this is and I'm like, woo, let's go. I feel totally recharged, and a smoothie as well. So these are simple things. What's complex is actually doing it.
Mm.
What's complex is actually waking up earlier, waking up before the kids wake up, and doing this practice. Regularity is complex because we are complex. Our minds will find very cunning, clever ways to not do it. I know you know what I mean, because I've seen you. You're a beast, so you're one of the fittest people I know. So it's not easy to get up and to run, because your body is like, come on, sleep in, Cynthia. Just read it, read it. Just watch a
Oh,
show,
the
or just
mind.
get that ice cream. It's And what's happening, what makes it complex is that there's a story that I've been told, I suspect we all are, that the key to success is being comfortable. The more comfortable you are, the more successful you are. So you study hard, get the good job, get the good house, kids, car, etc. So you can be comfortable in nice, comfortable home, comfortable sofa, comfortable TV set. And we kind of extol comfort as one of the highest virtues when it's actually a trap. So I call it the comfort trap. We get trapped in our comfort. So this physically, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, like, and you get really good at it. So if you're sitting the whole time, you get really good at sitting, really bad at everything else, really bad at moving. But the same thing is true as well for the mind. If you keep hanging up with the people who look the same, talk the same, work the same way, think the same thought, you get very comfortable with that sort of dichotomy, and everything else becomes uncomfortable. You can't handle people with other ideas, beliefs, opinions, or lifestyles. Similarly, if you hang out with certain kind of emotions, anger, frustration, sadness, guilt, and you do this over and over again, you get really good at that and really bad at everything else. So this idea of comfort is very dangerous, actually. So this notion of allowing yourself to be uncomfortable, not in a brutal bravado kind of a way, but in a more scientific, curious kind of a way. Yeah, okay, I'm going to try to wake up 10 minutes early. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I can handle discomfort. It's not pain, it's just discomfort. It's no big deal. Just like you, when you get out of bed and you put your running clothes on, the first few 10 minutes or so might be uncomfortable. The lungs are trying to open up, the legs are kind of waking up, but that's okay, because it's in that discomfort where there's a sense of discovery and growth. So the willingness to be uncomfortable, and you practice this so that when real life shows up, the informal practice, you can be more comfortable regardless of the physical situation, regardless of projections. You can still be comfortable. So practicing being uncomfortable, I think, is important, in a very dignified way, in a meaningful way, not in a pointless way.
Yeah.
In a way that actually adds to the purpose of your life.
Well, especially when we know that we're aiming for a positive and like a positive outcome. In other words, if I'm going to go through the discomfort of putting on my running shoes and get up in the morning and go running, it's because I know that after that, I'm going to feel amazing.
Yeah.
So there's kind of that reward after. And I can't tell you the number of times, and now that we're in the running subject, that, in the middle of my run, I am talking to myself, telling myself, like, I so want to stop. You know what I mean? Like, I have this, today I'm not feeling it, I'm tired, I feel like a rock, and I need to stop, and then there's that mind, like, well, what if I just made it to that point? If I make it to that point and I still want to stop, then I'll stop, but for the meantime, like, just keep going. And so I play mind games with myself, and then at some point I'll get to that point where I said, if you want to stop there, you can stop. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know what's going to happen at that point. And what often happens is I'll pick it up and I'll keep going, and then I'll have a really good run and going, wow, if I'd stopped earlier, then I wouldn't have discovered that, you know what, that pain ends up going away and things can turn out really well. And if they don't, then okay, well, at least I tried. But most of the time, there's kind of a breakthrough happening after that heavy discomfort, knowing that in the end, like, there's no way I would regret it. Like, at no time did I ever thought, oh, I should have stopped when I should have stopped when I was uncomfortable. It's too bad.
Ooh, let's
I had
take
that.
a pause right there. I think that made the whole podcast totally worth it. If nothing else, I hope people got that. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you. That was just
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Yeah. So there you go, my dear listener, viewer. That's how it's done. Beautiful.
Thank you so much for
Fantastic.
saying that, Bhaskar. That's really great.
And this analogy applies for everything. Meditation practice is not difficult. It's uncomfortable. There's discomfort in the mind chatting away, and can you just sit with that for another minute, see how you feel, and then suddenly you slip into, that's why. uncomfortable conversations, you know? Can I sit with this, you know, and see what arises, as opposed to running away, distracting, you know, numbing, and then see. So
Right.
this metaphor extends beautifully to every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely. In fact, tapping into the topic of meditation, you are like, if you know about something, you know about meditation. Am I right?
This is my main thing, yeah.
Okay, this is great. I would love to talk about this. So, essentially, I'd like for you to share what is and what isn't meditation. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there as to what meditation is, what it looks like, and what it's not. In other words, people say, oh, I have to sit cross legged to meditate, or I need to empty my mind to meditate. Otherwise, I'm not meditating. Or, you know, if I have the rat race going in my head, well, I I failed. You know, all of those
Mhm.
misconceptions or preconceptions that people have about meditation. I'd love for you to bring clarity on that. Like, what is
Beautiful.
meditation, or are there different types of meditation? I know there's different types of meditation.
Mhm.
So I'd like, yeah, can you bring a little bit of clarity on that?
Sure, sure. I'd like to speak as I'm not prescribing anything. I'm just describing. Although I've been doing this for many years and teaching for many years, it's not like I hold the you know, the placard of truth. So please, accept it as such, and know that that's my intention. It's not to prescribe the truth of meditation; it's to describe my understanding of it. So, could I share with you a little story that kind of I find really helps to understand how I see uh, meditation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My gosh,
Okay.
everybody get cozy. We want to.
Okay, a little story. So this story I think summarizes beautifully, at least one version of it. So it's an old ancient Sufi story. So Sufism is a beautiful mystic tradition, and in a tradition they have a character called Nasruddin, Mullah Nasruddin. He's a simple guy, but in his stories you understand some things about life. So the story goes, one fine morning, Nasruddin was outside his house, just searching frantically all over the place. A friend comes by and says, "Hey Nasruddin, what's the matter?" And Nasruddin says, "Oh, my keys. I lost my keys." "Hey, you lost your keys. Hey, let me help you." So out of compassion, the friend joined and they're searching everywhere through the leaves, the rubbles, the twigs, the bushes, the branches. Other people see them. They also join the search and the group gets bigger and bigger. And finally, 2 hours later, one guy stands up and says, "Nasruddin, we've been out here for 2 hours now. There's no sign of your keys. Where did you lose your keys?" Nasruddin said, "Oh, I lost my keys inside the house." And they all stopped and looked at him bewildered. What kind of madness is this? Why are we looking for the keys outside if you lost the keys inside? Nasruddin answered, you know, it's very dark inside my house. You can't see very well in there. There's much more light outside. It's easier to search outside. It's a peculiar story, but our reality might not be far from that, in that when life jams up, we try to find a solution outside because we can see and gather data outside so easily. But the key might actually be inside this house, this mind body structure called Bhaskar. But it's very dark in there, very hard to see what's happening in there. And meditation to me just turns the light on. So you can see a lot better what's happening inside this house called Bhaskar, and discover some very precious keys, very valuable keys, and how to skillfully navigate through life. So it's the fundamental of know thyself. Know thyself not in theory or emotion, devotion. Know yourself experientially. What is this mind body structure called Bhaskar? You know, this self curiosity, I think, is a prerequisite for meditation. In fact, in the Yoga Sutras, it starts with "and thus begins" the yoga understanding of yoga. That "and thus" sort of implies the prerequisite. You have to be curious about you know, your human condition, and that's the only prerequisite. A natural curiosity. You know, what are these thoughts, emotions I keep processing? Why do I behave this way? These characteristics, these nuances, these gifts, these limitations. You know, what is all this stuff? So this self curiosity is a prerequisite. And to me, meditation is a scientific process of understanding yourself. And it works just like any science experiment, except what scientists call experiment externally, yogis call experiencing internally. But the same scientific rigor is in place. If you look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, it's written like a scientific paper. You have the synopsis at the top, then you've got how to do the experiment, then you have the results, then you have a conclusion. And it's very, very secular. Anybody can practice it, anybody can test it, validate it, or refute it. So there's no mysticism or beliefs or opinions. It's very objective, which is something that really appealed to my engineering brain. I was amazed by how scientific it was, and how repeatable it was, for generations. So what is meditation? According to the Yoga Sutras, that's one authority. There are many others as well, but one way to see it. And when I say many others, what I've discovered is they're all saying the same thing. It's like water. You can call it by different names in different culture, but it doesn't change the fact that it's water. Same thing with this. Buddha describes it a certain way. Patanjali, it doesn't matter. They're really saying the same thing in their own unique perspective and language. So the way it kind of works is first, a prerequisite is you live in an agreeable way. If your life is completely random and ad hoc, you can't do the experiment properly. So that's called the yamas and niyamas, basic conduct, social conduct, and personal conduct, so that you set the scene to do the experiment. And then you got to get the body ready. So you have to do the physical practice. So if your body is aching and paining and hurting, and you can't concentrate, it's impossible. Yes, the body's too distracting. You remove the distraction by doing the physical postures called asanas, so that you can be physically comfortable, so you can sit for meaningful duration without being disturbed by aches and pains. That's all the purpose of asanas serve. Everything else is just frills. It really has no value. So the sole purpose of yoga asana practice, the way I understand it, is to be able to sit still for a meaningful duration without being disturbed by aches and pains. That's it.
Wow, that is
straightforward. That's optimum health. And you'll be surprised how many people, they look like Adonis, but they can't sit for even 2 minutes without aches and pains. So according to yoga, that's not a healthy body. So a healthy body has to be comfortable, seated for a meaningful duration. So fine, you did that. And then the mind keeps jumping all over the place, right? So that's where the breathing techniques come along to regulate your vitality. And by doing so, you can also regulate the lucidity and the calmness of the mind. So as is the breath, so is the mind. I think we know this experientially already. If one is feeling angry, frustrated, irritated, depressed, anxious, the breath becomes shaky, unsteady, erratic, because the mind is erratic, unsteady. If right now, amongst friends, comfortable environment, no imminent danger, the breath should be smooth because the body and mind are comfortable. So the breath is constantly mimicking how the mind is. So as you regulate your breath, you regulate your mind. So pranayama helps to more subtly create the proper conditions. And then you develop concentration. Concentration, what's called dharana, is one-pointedness. I mean, when you look at a TV and watch a movie concentrated for about 2 hours nonstop, it's concentration, but it's because it's screaming and shouting at you. But can you concentrate on ordinary things, like your breath or certain body sensations? So developing the ability to stay with one thing without the mind jumping all over the place. That's the prerequisite, a sharpness of the mind, if you will, that can actually stay with something for a meaningful duration. And then you actually take that sharp mind and drop it into this mind-body structure. So the instrument of observation is the sharpness of your mind, a sensitivity, clarity, luminosity almost, of the mind. And then when the mind becomes sharp, you basically drop the awareness inside the mind-body structure. And then you just see what this is. We take this thing for granted, think it's a physical structure, but that's just one very gross layer of truth. There's also, I think we know there's like over 50 trillion cells that make up this body. Can you imagine that? 50 trillion cells are somehow collaborating and coordinating to create this physical structure, a living system. It's magic, and every cell has a small charge to it. Apparently science has shown it's like 1.4 volts. It's not a lot, but multiplied by 50 trillion, that's over 70 trillion volts of energy, or prana or chi, flowing through the body right now. It's amazing. You can actually experience this, and not to mention all the organs somehow organizing and co-creating. It's amazing. So you just marvel. The only suitable response is awe of what this human structure is. And as I am, so are you, and so is every other human being, and frankly, sentient beings. So
Yeah,
right away, you see how incredible, what a privilege it is to be
absolutely.
born a sentient being. And then the option to do harm kind of goes away, because you realize, what are you doing? You know, once you recognize the preciousness, then violence and this just becomes as nonsensical as putting your hand in the fire. You know, why would you do that? So our relationship with the external world, our sentient beings, start to change, because we discover what's true for me is also true for everything else. So meditation is that's one way to see it. Now there are different ways of meditation, and the way I like to express that is like going to a gym. There are different equipments that will develop different things.
Mm.
It depends on what you want to develop. So, you know, I've had the good fortune to practice different forms of meditation for meaningful duration. There is, I started with TM, Transcendental Meditation, where they give you a seed mantra, what's called a bija mantra, that is specifically designed for your incarnation. You repeat this over and over again, and it creates a very transcendent state. It's really very powerful. So you get this transpersonal look at reality outside this mind-body structure. Then you have what I call saguna mantras that have meanings. You know, all cultures have this. You have like you have like in yoga or Hinduism, they have Om Namah Shivaya, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Or in Buddhism, they have Om Mani Padme Hum. Or in Christianity, you might have Hail Mary, full of grace, or Thank you, Jesus, or Allahu Akbar for Islamic tradition, or Shalom, Shalom for Judaism, and on and on and on, right? These are incantations with meanings. So sometimes, typically, you also visualize some inspiring person, the founder of a religion, or some saint, or something like this. And certainly it creates very, very heightened states of awareness, deep peace, deep tranquility. And you connect with the essence of that inspiring person. So for Jesus, you know, he's a symbol embodiment of love.
Mm.
You know, Buddha, embodiment of enlightenment. And you take on Ganesha, you know, the protector, or you know, Hanuman, and the devotee, you know. So you take on their characteristics because of this commitment to it. This is a form of bhakti yoga as well. So all these different kinds of meditation, different techniques, different peculiarities, different benefits. So my encouragement is to, and I can go on like this, others as well. You can do with the eyes open. You can do looking at, you know, a flower or something like this, or a candle flame. My recommendation is, I mean, the subject is too broad for us to go into it right now, but to see, you know, what resonates with you the most, you know, what feels right for you. And once you find it, to just dig down deep, because they'll all go to the same place of self-realization. Doesn't matter which portal you take. What matters is that it resonates with you deeply, that you
Right.
can commit yourself to it.
And what do you say to people who say they can't meditate, they can't sit still?
That's funny. Yeah, like you know, I call it like it's you know, it's a tingling of a shampoo. You know, it means it's working. And you say you can't do that. That's it. That's that's it's working. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. You know, that discomfort that you're feeling. I think the expectation here, which is the real culprit, is that somehow you're going to sit and you become a Zen monk. Not so easy. Not so, not so easy, you know. If it was easy, we'd all be doing it. No, no, no. You know, it's you gotta have a sense of humor, you know, because what's happening inside us is a joke. It's just non-stop, you know, drama, romance, thriller, action, you know, whatever movie you want is playing in there. So I think a sense of humor with yourself is very, very important, you know. So it's not working. Um, there's a lot more to say about this, but just to consider that this is actually the yardstick of it working. I've had people come to me and say, Bhaskar, I sat for 10 minutes and my mind must have wandered at least 100 times. I'm like, good for you. You just noticed your mind wandering 100 times. Most people don't even know this, that their mind is wandering all the time. That's actually working, you know? So it's not that the method isn't working. It's more that the expectations are misaligned with the method. So if you're expecting that you'll suddenly be in a thought-free state and voila, you know, bliss ever after. No, 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 it's not that. It's like anything else. You don't just walk into a gym and walk out looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It doesn't happen like that. You know?
Don't tell anybody. I've been telling all my clients that.
You know, it's gonna take some practice. But the thing is, just like going to a gym, every time you go, there's going to be an improvement. Every moment is worth it. Every moment, if practiced properly, is going to help you physically. Similarly, every moment you sit for a formal practice is benefiting you. Every single moment.
So you're
Um,
seeing it as like cumulative. It's not like, okay, I
it's
did it for
cumulative.
today and then it'll go away and then tomorrow I got to start over again. It's actually like it accumulates.
Well, let's take this metaphor even further. If you go to a gym, sometimes you're on the game, you're focused, you're in the zone, you're feeling up for it, and you're just killing it. You know, you're a beast in every single machine. And sometimes you're just not feeling it. You're just grinding your way through. You know. Same with meditation. Sometimes you're a Zen monk, like completely in the zone, perfectly present, and sometimes the mind is a drunk monkey, just with a gun shooting everywhere. It's just a complete mess.
I
It's not
totally.
about the quality. It's not about the duration. It's about the regularity. You
Mm,
know, same place, same time, every day, day after day, over. And that's what it's about. Just like going to a gym or going for a run or brushing your teeth. You know, it's the consistency. It's not the quality of one time.
right.
And then, once you know why to meditate, once you're convinced of its value, then you just show up. It's that simple. And you should start seeing the benefits right away. If you don't, then there's something wrong with how you're practicing
Oh my gosh.
or some misalignment with the expectation.
Yeah, I've seen it working with
And to also put another point in that, meditation, some people confuse things with meditation. Meditation is separate from visualization, is separate from hypnosis. It's separate from what you call incantations of self-belief, this kind of thing.
mm,
These are all very, very good. Different techniques, different benefits, they're all good. It's just not meditation.
got it.
Meditation, you don't put any intention into it. You observe reality as it is without touching anything. When you put intention into it, that becomes shavasana, that becomes guided imagery, that becomes, because there's an intention behind it, there's a goal. Meditation is brutally simple because there's no goal. You're just sitting and naturally observing experiences as they are. So the complexity almost comes from its simplicity because the mind wants something to chew on. There's nothing to chew on.
That's really you're pointing out something really interesting too, and awesome, because yes, you're right, there's a lot of confusion oftentimes with all of those things, and it, like you said, it doesn't make any of those better or worse. They're just different. They're just not
Mm-hmm.
meditation. And the other thing I hear you pointing out is the idea of meditation is just being with whatever is there. In other words, there's no sitting down, and if your mind goes into, like you say, the, was it the wild monkey or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the I love that
Yeah.
expression. When
Wild
it
monkey
goes,
with a gun. Drunk one.
wild
Drunk
monkey
wild
with a
monkey
gun,
with a
yeah,
gun.
exactly. And whatever, conversations are there, whether you like them or not, we oftentimes we tend to judge ourselves for not doing it right. And I say that in quotations. In other words, there's no wrongdoing. There's nothing wrong with observing just what is there, but we tend to make it wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm. This is
Like,
how it is. Whether you like it or not, whether you wish and pray and dream, there's nothing you can do to change the past. There's nothing you can do to change the present. The present is the way it is. This is how the reality of this moment. No amount of crying, praying is going to change it. So the ability to see reality as it is. Now suddenly the future has a lot more possibilities than the one narrow reactive possibility. You see? The past is come and gone. Forget about it. The present is just a consequence of what's come and gone. The future, however, now that is affected very much by our leaning into this moment as it is, seeing it not just externally, not just the global pandemic and all that that's happening, and the family situation, internally as well. There's that and there's this. When you see it, it's no longer blind. You're no longer a stranger to it. It's no longer dangerous. It's like if there's broken glass in your floor and the lights are off, the broken glass is dangerous. But if the lights are on, it's no longer dangerous because you see it. It's kind of like that. So
That's
inside this house is this broken glass everywhere, and you just turn the light on, and you go, "Oh, there's a bit of a need for praise here. There's a aversion to blame here. There's a need to feel valid over here. It's just kind of seeing your own terrain, and it's beautiful. It's humbling, and deeply healing, and I would say necessary for skillful living.
absolutely, absolutely. And oftentimes I notice when you can just see it, like when you just look at it, it does happen that it dissipates, like in that
Mm,
moment.
yeah.
Whatever, if you're struggling with something or if you're resisting something, it's like what resists persists, right?
Hmm.
So, and I think, let me know if that pertains to what you're saying, but like you say, once you see the broken glass, it's like, oh well, no wonder I've been tripping up and cutting
Hmm.
myself and injuring people, have been getting injured around me. Well, now I see it. What do I want to do with it?
Hmm.
It can stay there. Maybe it needs to stay there,
Just
or I
walk
can
around it
scoop
every
it up,
time or clean it up. It's up to
walk
you.
around. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's a double-edged sword because there is a tendency to like the good stuff and not like the bad stuff, the good bad duality.
Mm-hmm.
Because fundamentally, mechanically speaking, they're the same thing. You know, there's a sensation or energy in motion. Emotion comes into the body, stays for a while, goes away. It's as true for the pleasant stuff as is for the unpleasant stuff. So it's like beyond the hills of pleasant and unpleasant, just seeing them for what they are. And then you make the realization experientially, oh, it's impermanent.
Yeah.
Even if somebody praises you to the heavens, you might feel very elated, very ecstatic, but it's going to go away. Next person is going to blame you, ridicule you. It's impermanent. The person ridicules you, it doesn't matter. It's going to go away. So when you realize that these things just come and go, why get worked up about it? Just for a moment, this sensation comes, and it's not to ignore it. It's not to dismiss it as trivial. To me, I actually there's a curiosity around it, like a scientist or an engineer. Why is this here? That's one thing. And secondly, there's this beautiful poem by Jalaluddin Rumi called "The Guest House." I highly recommend people to read it. It's a very short poem. It just sees the body as a guest house, and every emotion that arrives is like a guest, a visitor. So if you're a good host, you treat your guest well. You treat your guest with respect, but you don't give them permanent residency there. They do their thing and they move. It's just a guest house. It's not a, you know, it's not a home. So when this anger comes, it's as the poem says, it's a gift from beyond. It's a messenger from beyond. It's teaching you something. It's there to teach you something. There's something valuable to learn from that experience. So for me, it's been that when I hang out with it, suddenly I see how this emotion has impacted me throughout my life, how I have resisted it, or, for example, praise. For example, this sensation is a very pleasant sensation. So I can see it throughout my life how I have cheated, lied, exaggerated, manipulated just to get this sensation.
Mm.
And conversely, blame, ridicule, I know what it feels like. It's so unpleasant. And a number of times I have, again, behaved unwholesomely just to avoid that experience. So you see, we have these strings that manipulate us invisibly. And when you see it, it can no longer has the power over you because, it's just no longer dangerous. It's like, oh, there it is again. This kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's like the saying, this too shall pass. This
yeah.
guest house idea, it brought that.
Honor the guest, listen to the guest's story. Oh, thank you very much. Got it. And off it goes because it's done its job. But if you don't listen to it, it's going to show up louder and louder and louder. So one way to look at it is meditation is a way of learning a language. The body is speaking to us all the time. It's a language of sensations. And the more nuanced you become at it, the more sophisticated you become, you can hear the body when it starts to whisper, so it doesn't have to scream,
Mm,
which is a disease. Yeah.
that is a disease.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you get really good at listening to the body. So it makes you, some people think meditation makes you indifferent, aloof, and separate somehow. You don't feel anything. I've heard that, I've had that feedback, but I like to feel emotions. I like to, be engaged in life. Oh yeah, if you like it, you're going to really get it. You're going to feel everything
Well, that's the thing. It's
after
almost
you
like
like it.
it's even more so, right? It's instead of
Much more so.
reacting, like having it work through you and you reacting with that emotion. It's you looking at it face on and just being with it, like without,
Yeah.
so like part of you just wants to lash, or if you're angry, like part of you wants to lash out, wants to react, wants to, you know, speak,
Mm.
scream, break things. I don't know what the impulse is, but then that's like an outlet, right? It's like I want to get rid of this.
Yeah.
But
I
then
don't like it. I
when
don't
you
like
look at
it.
it
Yeah.
face on, it's like, oh my gosh, like you get to just really be with it. And as a result, also, because you're just being with it and not reacting to it, you're also not causing the harm that you could be doing otherwise.
Amen. Yeah. And you just get better and better at that.
Mm.
And there'll be times when you can't. You get caught up in your own whirlpool of reaction because it was just too intense. And you just dust yourself off and start again.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Like there's definitely like there's failure in that,
Yeah,
right?
you
Like
just
there's
start again. It's okay. you know.
the number of
Uh,
times where I'm just like, I get angry and I'm like,
uh,
okay, I'm just not going to talk right now. I need my space because I'm angry. And if I say something, I'm going to regret it. And like all of that.
yeah,
And then there's the times where I don't catch that and say the thing that I may regret or manipulate or, like do the subtle things that I tend to do,
yeah,
knowing fully well that I'm not really being responsible about my anger or negative emotion.
yeah, yeah. But, at a very practical level, if if that matters to the listener, the viewer, that's the reason to practice. You just get really good at that, of noticing it before it becomes a tsunami. And obviously you get better and better at it as you keep practicing. So it's for the pleasant stuff as well. So if somebody, you do something great, okay, it's going to pass. So and so external events no longer guide your self-worth. That's so
Mm.
important. Your self-confidence. So much, especially with social media and stuff like that, we're looking for some kind of validation from the external world. And when you go through this very humbling and beautiful process, it's the external stuff just becomes information, valuable information, observations that can help you do things more skillfully, but it no longer impacts your own opinion of yourself.
Oh my gosh, you're touching, like this could be a whole other podcast because it just brings me to the idea of what runs our world, what
Mm-hmm.
determines our state of being. In other words, what determines our happiness, our self-worth, oftentimes can end up being external, and to a point where, and it's very subtle, and I've shared about this in, I believe, like a past episode where for me it was like, well, what ran my self-worth, my self-confidence, my happiness too, like how I was my financial situation, right? And so it was like I was always, I'm self-employed, I'm an entrepreneur, so it's always like, well, I'm always worried or trying to find more clients, and if things aren't doing well, I need to do more, find more. And when I'm good financially, it's like, okay, now I'm in a good place with that, and financially, well, then I was good, right? Like you asked me,
Mm-hmm.
how are you, Cynthia? Like, I'm great. And
Mm-hmm.
then when it was not enough, and that's my own perception of not enough, then
Mm-hmm.
things were not going so well.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that determined my state of being. And I
Mm-hmm.
discovered that actually that's one of the things that I discovered during at the beginning of this pandemic, like this, quarantine time, is I kind of hit the rock bottom when everything went to zero, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to see that face on, and I had no idea. I knew that I had stories with finances and stuff, but I had no idea that it was running my life to the extent that it was running my life. And because I hit that, let's call it, I don't like to say rock bottom. I do say rock bottom, but it's more of that I stopped, and I was able to look at that face on, And once I saw it, it's like it dissipated. It was like this weight that just completely shifted over off my shoulders. And I had this overwhelming almost sense of inner peace, and just like it was bliss for the next long while, because I'd let go of this,
Mm.
and it's like a whole new reality emerged from that. So I got a little bit intense there, but I really
No, it's
get.
beautiful. Yeah, from breakdown to breakthrough. Yeah, somewhere along the way, and this is intimate, I'm just sharing what I'm seeing, is that there's this beautiful little girl, Cynthia, and somewhere along the way, she felt unsafe in this world. And she needed to, to prove her self-worth with some financial metrics. And that kind of what revealed itself to you, like, oh, and it's when we're liberated from all this, we're at a better version. We can serve at a deeper level. If I'm doing things because I need the money, I'm a whole different person than if I'm doing it because I want to serve and appreciate you. I'm a very different person, you see. So these needs basically rob us of the profound genius and beauty of our inner gifts. um, so bravo. I'm hoping that a lot of these kind of breakthroughs are happening in society. There's a mantra that I often use that helps me a lot. It goes like this: I have nothing to prove, I have nothing to promote, I have nothing to defend. I'm here to serve and appreciate.
That's amazing. That's
Nothing to
beautiful.
prove, nothing to promote, nothing to defend. I'm just here to serve and appreciate. All the needs go away, so I'm fully with what is arising in that moment. And that's the best version of Bhaskar I'm capable of.
I just might steal that.
Yeah, take it and run with it and share it with the world. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Our needs rob us of our genius. So that's why it's so important, this inner stuff. So you meet your own needs, and I can go into this. There's a whole workshop around these kind of themes, but you can actually meet your own needs. So you arrive fully nourished, just there to serve and appreciate. You don't really have a horse in the race. You don't have to prove anything. Yeah.
So true. So true. Eh? When you don't have to prove anything, it's like you're just there. And I noticed that is how you show up. When you walk in a room, like I notice you greatly when, the few times that I've didn't even know you were going to be in this like networking meeting or whatever. And I watch you walk in, and it's all of a sudden, it's just like this humble being. You don't say much, but yet your presence is so prominent, and it's just so beautiful and comforting when you're there.
Thank you, my dear.
Yeah. So, Bhaskar, I'd like to know where, if people are interested in contacting you, where can they reach you?
Uh, Last time I checked, I was the only Bhaskar Goswami in Montreal. So, so you can just search that on any social media platform. And then my own website is essentially my name, bhaskargoswami.com. And there you see places where I do workshops, retreats, even now virtually. And we have a hybrid workshop coming up where we have an outdoor and virtual setup, which is full now, but there'll be more of that coming up as well. So essentially myname.com. There's also, you know, uh, Dana, which is a company I co-founded, a nonprofit that creates anonymous contribution-based wellness around the world. It's a beautiful little project that I value very much, that people can go to. You can find a link from my website. And what I love to do is actually dive down deep with people. So the one-on-one is where I get the greatest deal of nourishment, because I've been doing this for over 20 years now, yoga in the broadest sense, and just refining this practice in a way that people can benefit from it, with their particular circumstance and challenges. So fine tuning the practice to people's needs is something that gives me a great amount of joy.
Excellent. I'll be sure to leave your contact information in the show notes. And before we end this, I'd like to hear you just make an observation about everything that's going on right now, coming from an observer. This is, I know that it's not that you have all the answers, but being an observer for everything that is happening right now, what do you feel you can say that would make a difference in people's lives right now?
Mm. This might be a good way to sort of tie it together. I'll end with the words inner clarity. So we started with how the external world is so unclear right now and we feel overwhelmed. So now is the time to really set that anchor of trust and clarity within ourselves. When you know what you're about and how you can contribute your unique gifts and attributes in a meaningful way to a mighty purpose that serves the greater good, this is what matters the most right now. So the inner clarity is really where it is, because the external has never been so unclear. There's so many different layers and permutations, combinations, as I mentioned. To try to get clarity externally is virtually impossible right now. But internal clarity, that's something we all have some say over. Know what you're about, know your gifts, master them, and serve in a meaningful way for a mighty purpose. This is the most clear thing I can say, because outside, it's really anybody's guess, and I can go into many possibilities, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that let's heal that inner child that's just begging for attention. I literally hang out with my 3-year-old self. I really like that kid. I connect with that kid, and I nourish that kid, and I love that kid. So I wish for the listener, the viewer, to connect with the most beautiful child that they were. See what gifts that child has, that you still have, and manifest them. And this is not the time to slack off. This is the time to double down on your gifts, because yeah, it's getting intense. So let's not wait for a superhero. You are the superhero.
Wow, Bhaskar, thank you so much for saying that. Thank you for your message. Thank you for doing the work that you do. Such a contribution. And thank you for coming on
I'm very grateful for this time together, my dear.
podcast.